insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy.
As those familiar with the film will know, David Fincher's adaptation of Chuck Palahniuk's novel concludes with the death of Tyler Durden, the split personality of its troubled and maimed protagonist. The film is careful to honor this point, and in contrast to the original script, which names the character played by Ed Norton as Jack, refers to him only as the narrator. The script offers no hidden insight in this sense. The name Jack identifies him only to the extent that his name tags do. That is, the identities he adopts over the course of the story as he attends various help and support groups, like Cornelius, Terry, Travis, Lemmy, Rupert. It is merely just another name, or so it seems. Tyler, of course, as the great twist of the novel and movie reveals, is another of these identities. The implications of this point can be difficult to recognize, as its revelation seems to concern the idea that Tyler is not real, that he was truly the narrator all along. This, however, is merely one way of seeing things. What is of greater interest is how this revelation highlights that Tyler is as real as the narrator himself, or put differently, that the narrator is as false as Tyler Durden. The clear disjunction between Tyler and the narrator, or for the sake of simplicity, between Brad Pitt and Ed Norton, recalls the kind of psychological split that underpins Robert Louis Stevenson's novella, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, in which the latter, a murderous criminal, appears to inhabit the former, an upstanding doctor of medicine. The truth, however, is the reverse. The upstanding doctor is in reality morally bankrupt, and his reputation as a good man is no more than a means of avoiding detection. Here, the idea of a split personality represents the division between public and private selves, or put differently, the wholeness of a naturally fractured individual. We behave differently at work than we do at home, for example, and hence only necessarily appear differently at home than we do at work, as we, in a sense, perform ourselves. Given the expectations placed upon us in our workspaces, or more broadly, in public, it'd be natural to assume that it is our home lives that truly represent us. That for all I might do to present myself well at work, I am in truth, in the comfort of my living room, an irredeemable slob. As the apartment of the narrator is destroyed in an explosion, Fight Club thus comes to appear as interested in an exploration of a human self that is unmoored by the private, and in turn, of human identity as purely contingent. That is, as fundamentally dependent on the world around us, the space we occupy at a particular moment, at a particular time. The narrator's lack of a real name in this sense thus reflects his abstraction from the kind of space in which you could assume such an identity. A space that would be necessarily permanent and unchanging. A space that is simply not of this world. At the same time, however, the apparent namelessness of the narrator highlights the simple fact that he has been named, that he does possess an identity, that he occupies precisely such a space as the narrator, who creates himself through the act of narrating, as an artist creates themselves through their artistry, or to recall the thinking of the novel in the doing of the little job you're programmed to do. This is to say that placed in the context of an office worker, you are an office worker. That placed into the context of a cinema projectionist, you are a cinema projectionist. That placed into the context of a particular way of life, you are that way of life. A Christian, a Buddhist, an atheist, or indeed a space monkey. A thoughtless pusher of leathers and buttons, a mere product of your environment, of your time. Without these contexts, without the office job, without the apartment, without anything to ground ourselves, Fight Club suggests that we are in fact nothing. a ghost that does not inhabit a particular machine, but rather that is an illusion produced and projected by the machinery of the world. This, at least, is what the novel suggests. Fincher's film adaptation stops short of this realization, and instead threatens us the return of the repressed, or put differently, the incursion of some darker, animalistic part of ourselves that Tyler Durden embodies. This is the significance of the glitch in the stream, which highlights that Tyler, far from being dead, yet remains under the surface, messing with how we see the world. This idea, however, for all its perspective terror, is in fact nice in view of the alternative the novel proposes, which is that there is nothing under the surface, that with the end of the world we could be no more than a hollow shell. In a certain way, it is against this possibility, the possibility of the total annihilation of the self, that the narrator kills Tyler, and in order to preserve his sense of being, begins to tell his story again, securing his existence as the narrator against nothing. "Listen," he says to Marlowe, as the world is burning around him. "You met me in a weird time of my life.